My wife's pregnancy announcement turned into a nightmare when her sister revealed her darkest secret. When Jenna told me she wanted to throw a family dinner, I didn't think much of it. She loved hosting, especially since we'd moved into our new home. Just a small gathering, she'd said, flashing her usual bright smile. Your parents, my sister, and maybe a few friends. I nodded, distracted by work emails. Jenna had a knack for turning simple dinners into grand affairs, so I assumed she'd already planned everything down to the dessert. By the time the evening arrived, the house was glowing with warm lights, soft jazz playing in the background. Jenna had prepared an incredible spread: roast chicken, her famous garlic potatoes, and a chocolate cake that smelled divine. Our guests arrived one by one, filling the house with laughter and conversation. Her sister Claire was the last to show up, fashionably late as always. She strutted in wearing a sleek black dress, her lips painted a striking red. Sorry I'm late, she announced, dropping her bag by the door. Traffic was a nightmare. Jenna greeted her warmly, but I caught a flicker of tension in her eyes. Claire had always been a bit of a wild card, prone to saying or doing things that left people guessing. Dinner started smoothly enough. We chatted about work, upcoming vacations, and the latest gossip. Jenna was her usual lively self, keeping the conversation flowing effortlessly. Then, as dessert was being served, she stood up, tapping her glass for attention. I have an announcement to make, Jenna said, her voice clear and confident. The room fell silent, all eyes on her. I set down my fork, curious. Jenna took a deep breath, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. I wanted to do this in front of everyone because, well, it's a bit of a surprise. But before I get to the big news, she paused, her gaze locking onto mine. Ethan, there's something you need to explain. I blinked, confused. What are you talking about? Her expression hardened, the playful glint in her eyes replaced by something sharper. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't play dumb. The room tensed. My mother shifted uncomfortably in her seat, while my father shot me a questioning look. I don't understand, I said, my heart beginning to race. Jenna pulled out her phone, swiping through photos until she found what she was looking for. She held it up for everyone to see. A blurry picture of me at a coffee shop with a woman I barely recognized. Care to explain who she is? Jenna demanded. I stared at the image, my mind scrambling for an explanation. That's Amanda, my coworker. We had a meeting at the cafe last week. A meeting? Jenna's tone was dripping with sarcasm. That's funny, because it looks more like a date. It wasn't a date. I protested, heat rising to my face. We were discussing a project. That's all. The room buzzed with murmurs. Claire leaned back in her chair, an amused smirk tugging at her lips. Jenna, this is ridiculous, I said, my voice firm. You know I'd never cheat on you. She crossed her arms, her gaze icy. Maybe you should tell that to Amanda. Just as I was about to respond, Jenna's expression softened. She burst into laughter, the tension in the room breaking like a snapped string. Oh my God, you should see your face, she exclaimed, clutching her stomach. I'm just messing with you, Ethan. It's a prank. I stared at her, stunned. A prank? Yeah, she said, grinning. Come on, you have to admit it was a good one. Everyone was so serious. The table erupted into nervous laughter, though my parents didn't look entirely convinced. I forced a smile, my pulse still racing. As the laughter died down, Jenna stood again, raising her glass. Okay, now for the real announcement. She looked at me, her eyes sparkling. Ethan, we're having a baby. The room burst into cheers and congratulations. My shock was quickly replaced by joy as I pulled Jenna into a hug. I can't believe it, I said, kissing her cheek. This is amazing. She smiled, her earlier prank seemingly forgotten. But as I glanced across the table, I noticed Claire's expression. She wasn't smiling. Instead, she was staring at Jenna, her face pale and unreadable. After the dinner ended and the guests began to leave, Claire pulled me aside. Ethan, can I talk to you for a second? Of course, I said, curious. She hesitated, glancing toward Jenna, who was busy saying goodbye to my parents. Then she leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't think you should celebrate just yet. What do you mean? I asked, frowning. She bit her lip, her eyes filled with a mix of guilt and concern. There's something you don't know about Jenna. Before I could press her further, Jenna appeared, her cheerful demeanor masking whatever tension Claire had just introduced. What are you two whispering about? She asked, her tone light but with an edge of suspicion. Nothing important, Claire said quickly, stepping away. But her words lingered in my mind, casting a shadow over what should have been one of the happiest nights of my life. What did Claire mean? And why did it feel like the real prank was yet to come? The night after the dinner, I couldn't shake Claire's words. There's something you don't know about Jenna. It repeated in my mind like a mantra, gnawing at my thoughts. Jenna seemed oblivious to my unease, humming softly as she cleaned up the kitchen. Can you believe it? She asked, rinsing a wine glass. We're going to be parents. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. It's incredible. But inside, doubts churned. Claire's tone wasn't one of spite or jealousy. It had been filled with genuine concern. If there was something I needed to know, why hadn't she just told me? The next morning, I decided to confront Claire. I called her, but she didn't pick up. Determined, I drove to her apartment. She opened the door, her expression a mix of surprise and apprehension. Ethan, what are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, stepping inside. What did you mean last night? What don't I know about Jenna? Claire sighed, running a hand through her hair. I didn't want to say anything, but you deserve the truth. I crossed my arms, my heart pounding. The truth about what? About the baby, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Claire hesitated, clearly struggling with her words. I don't think it's yours, Ethan. The room seemed to tilt, her statement hitting me like a punch to the gut. What are you talking about? I'm not saying this lightly, she said quickly, but Jenna's been meeting someone, a man she used to date. His name is Daniel. He's my ex. The name struck a distant chord. I vaguely remembered Jenna mentioning Daniel when we first started dating, a brief relationship she had ended years ago. That's impossible, I said, shaking my head. Jenna wouldn't do that to me. She's not like that. I wish I were wrong, Claire said, her voice thick with regret, but I've seen them together. At first, I thought it was innocent. Maybe they were catching up, but it happened too often. And the way they acted around each other, she trailed off, letting her implication hang in the air. I wanted to deny it, to tell Claire she was mistaken, but her eyes were filled with sincerity, and the pit in my stomach told me I couldn't ignore her warning. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I demanded. I didn't know how, she admitted, and I didn't want to hurt you. But now that there's a baby involved, you need to know the truth. I left Claire's apartment in a daze, my mind racing with questions. Could Jenna really have betrayed me? Was the child she was carrying not mine? That evening, Jenna noticed my mood. You've been quiet all day, she said, sitting beside me on the couch. Is something wrong? I hesitated, weighing my options. If I confronted her outright, would she admit it? Or would she deny everything and turn it around on me? I'm fine, I lied, forcing a smile. Just tired from work. She nodded, though her eyes lingered on me, as if sensing there was more to my silence. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about Claire's words. I started noticing things I had overlooked before. Jenna's late nights, the way she'd quickly end phone calls when I entered the room. Were these signs, or was I letting paranoia take over? I decided to investigate. One evening, when Jenna was out shopping, I went through her phone. It felt wrong, but I needed answers. Her texts were mundane. Chats with friends, grocery lists, photos of nursery ideas. But then I found an unsaved number with messages that sent a chill down my spine. Daniel, are you sure you haven't told him yet? Jenna, not yet. I need to find the right time. Daniel, you can't keep this up forever. Jenna, I know. I'm trying. My hands trembled as I read the exchange. It wasn't explicit, but the implications were clear. Jenna was hiding something, and Daniel was involved. I put the phone back exactly as I found it, my heart pounding. That night, as Jenna slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, my mind spinning. The pieces were falling into place, but one question haunted me. If the baby wasn't mine, why had Jenna announced her pregnancy so publicly? The answer, I realized, would change everything. The next morning, I woke up early, unable to shake the messages I had read. Jenna was still asleep, her face peaceful as if the weight of her secrets hadn't touched her. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. I needed proof, something undeniable. I decided to contact Daniel. If he was involved, he might let something slip. I found his number in Jenna's phone and saved it in mine. Later that afternoon, while Jenna was out running errands, I stepped into my car and dialed the number. "Hello?" A male voice answered, hesitant. "Hi, Daniel," I said, my tone calm but firm. "This is Ethan, Jenna's husband. We need to talk." There was a long pause on the other end. Then he sighed. I was wondering when this call would come. We agreed to meet at a nearby coffee shop. When I walked in, Daniel was already there, nursing a cup of coffee. He looked up as I approached, his expression a mix of guilt and resignation. "Thanks for meeting me," I said, sitting across from him. "Let me guess," he said, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. "You found the messages." "I did," I admitted. "But I want to hear it from you. What's going on between you and Jenna?" Daniel hesitated, his eyes darting to the window. "Look, I didn't mean for things to get this far. I didn't even want to get involved again, but Jenna reached out to me." "When?" "A few months ago," he said, his voice low. "She said she wanted to catch up, talk about old times. At first, I thought it was harmless, but what?" I pressed, my patience wearing thin. "She told me she wasn't happy," Daniel admitted. "That things between you two weren't the same. One thing led to another, and we made a mistake." His words hit me like a sledgehammer. I felt a mix of anger and betrayal, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Is the baby mine?" I asked bluntly. Daniel's face fell. "I don't know," he admitted. "She hasn't told me either way. But if you're asking me, I'd say there's a chance it's not." I clenched my fists under the table, my mind racing. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a complete upheaval of my life. Why did she announce the pregnancy in front of everyone? I asked. Why not keep it quiet? Daniel shook his head. "That's Jenna for you. She's always been about appearances. Maybe she thought making it public would keep the truth from coming out." I left the coffee shop feeling more lost than ever. Daniel had confirmed my worst fears, but he'd also left me with more questions. How long had Jenna been lying to me? And why had she dragged me into this elaborate charade? That night, I couldn't keep up the pretense any longer. As soon as Jenna walked through the door, I confronted her. "Who is Daniel to you?" I asked, my voice steady but cold. Her face paled. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb, Jenna," I snapped. "I talked to him. I know about your meetings, your messages. Just tell me the truth." Jenna's shoulders sagged, and for the first time, I saw a crack in her confident exterior. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said quietly. "So it's true?" I asked, my voice rising. "You've been seeing him behind my back?" "It wasn't like that," she insisted. "I wasn't planning to, but things got complicated." "Complicated?" I repeated, incredulous. "You cheated on me, Jenna, and now you're telling me the baby might not even be mine?" She flinched at my words. "I don't know, okay?" she admitted. "I didn't plan for any of this. I didn't know how to tell you." Her confession left me reeling. I didn't know whether to scream or walk away. But before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. Jenna looked confused, wiping her eyes. "Who could that be?" "I don't know," I said, heading to the door. When I opened it, I froze. Standing there was Claire, her face pale and tight with determination. "We need to talk," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "What's going on?" Jenna demanded, her voice sharp. Claire turned to her sister, her expression unreadable. "I'm done keeping your secrets, Jenna. Ethan deserves to know everything." "What are you talking about?" I asked, my heart pounding. Jenna's face twisted in panic. "Claire, don't." But Claire cut her off. "You didn't just cheat with Daniel," she said, her voice trembling with anger. "You've been lying about something even worse." The room fell silent, the weight of her words suffocating. What do you mean? I asked, barely able to speak. Claire looked at me, her eyes filled with sorrow. Jenna's been hiding something from you for years. And once you hear it, nothing will ever be the same. Claire's words hung in the air like a thundercloud, and I felt the walls closing in around me. Jenna looked like a deer caught in headlights, her face pale and her lips trembling. Claire, stop, Jenna pleaded, her voice breaking. Please, don't do this. No, Claire said firmly, her gaze unwavering. He deserves to know. I took a step closer to Claire, my voice low and controlled. What are you talking about? What has Jenna been hiding? Claire hesitated, as if bracing herself for a storm. Ethan, she began, her voice heavy with emotion. The lies didn't start with Daniel. They started long before you and Jenna got married. What lies? I demanded, my patience fraying. Claire turned to Jenna, her eyes blazing. Are you going to tell him, or should I? Jenna shook her head, tears streaming down her face. It's not what you think, she whispered. Then explain it, Claire shot back. Because I'm done covering for you. Jenna sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. Ethan, I never wanted this to happen. I thought I could move on, start fresh. But the past has a way of catching up. What past? I asked, my voice rising. Jenna, what are you talking about? Claire took a deep breath and turned back to me. Ethan, Jenna, and Daniel didn't reconnect a few months ago. They never stopped seeing each other. The words hit me like a physical blow. I staggered back, trying to process what she was saying. What are you saying? That this has been going on the entire time we've been together? Claire nodded solemnly. Jenna's been having an affair with Daniel for years, even before you two got engaged. I felt like the ground was crumbling beneath me. All those moments I thought we were happy, all the memories I cherished, they were all tainted. How could you do this to me? I asked Jenna, my voice cracking. How could you lie to me for so long? I didn't mean to hurt you, Jenna sobbed. I tried to end it, but I couldn't. Why? I demanded, my anger boiling over. Why couldn't you end it? Did you love him more than me? Jenna shook her head, her tears falling freely. It's not that simple, Ethan. I was scared. Scared of losing everything. Scared of losing you. You lost me the moment you decided to keep this from me, I snapped. Claire stepped forward, her expression softening. There's more, Ethan, she said quietly. I turned to her, my chest tightening. More? What else is there? Claire hesitated, glancing at Jenna. Tell him, she urged. He needs to hear it from you. Jenna looked up at me, her eyes filled with anguish. Ethan, she began, her voice trembling, the baby. It's not yours. The words hung in the air, each one slicing through me like a knife. I stared at her, unable to speak, unable to breathe. You knew? I finally managed to say. Jenna nodded, her face crumpling. I wasn't sure at first, but yes, it's Daniel's. My knees gave out, and I sank onto the arm of the couch, my head in my hands. The betrayal was too much, too overwhelming. I gave you everything, I said, my voice hollow. I trusted you. I built a life with you. And this is how you repay me? I never wanted it to end like this, Jenna said, her voice breaking. Claire placed a hand on my shoulder, her touch gentle but grounding. Ethan, there's one more thing you need to know, she said, her tone cautious. I looked up at her, my eyes filled with pain. What else could there possibly be? Claire hesitated, as if weighing her words carefully. Daniel's not just her ex, she said finally. He's the father of her first child too. My heart stopped. What are you talking about? Jenna doesn't have any other children. Claire shook her head. That's what she told you. But before she met you, she had a child with Daniel. She gave the baby up for adoption to keep it a secret. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Jenna had another child? And she never told me? I turned to Jenna, my voice shaking with fury. Is that true? Did you have a child with him? Jenna nodded, her tears flowing freely. It was before I met you, she said desperately. I was young and scared. I thought I could put it behind me, start fresh with you. But you didn't put it behind you, I spat. You kept seeing him. You kept lying to me. The room was heavy with silence, the weight of Jenna's secret suffocating. I stood up, my chest heaving. I need some air, I said, grabbing my coat. Jenna reached for me, her voice frantic. Ethan, please, don't leave. We can fix this. We can. No, I said, cutting her off. You've lied to me for years. There's nothing left to fix. As I walked out the door, Claire called after me. Ethan, wait. There's something else you need to know. I turned back, my patience hanging by a thread. What now? Claire hesitated, her face pale. Jenna wasn't just lying to you. She was lying to Daniel too. I stared at her, my mind spinning. What do you mean? Claire took a deep breath. The baby might not be his either. The weight of Claire's words left me standing in stunned silence. Jenna wasn't just lying to me. She was deceiving Daniel too. I turned to Jenna, who was now visibly trembling, her face streaked with tears. Is that true? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. Are you telling me that even Daniel might not be the father? Jenna opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her silence was answer enough. I felt my chest tighten with a mix of anger and disbelief. Who else is there, Jenna? I demanded, my voice rising. How many more lies have you told? Jenna broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I don't know, she choked out. I don't know who the father is. Her admission was a gut punch. The woman I thought I knew had become a stranger, her web of lies unraveling faster than I could keep up. Claire stepped forward, her expression hard. Ethan, I know this is overwhelming, but you need to hear everything, she said. I turned to her, my patience wearing thin. There's more? Claire nodded, her eyes filled with reluctant determination. Yes, and it's about Daniel. What about him? I asked, my voice laced with exhaustion. Claire hesitated before dropping the final bombshell. He's been using Jenna just as much as she's been using him. Daniel has no intention of stepping up as the father. In fact, he's planning to leave the country next month. He told me himself. The room spun as the implications sank in. Not only had Jenna lied to me, but she'd also been betrayed by the very man she thought she could rely on. Jenna looked up, her face twisted in shock. What? No, Daniel wouldn't do that. He would, Claire said firmly. And he is. He's already lined up a job overseas. He's done with this mess, Jenna, just like Ethan is. Jenna's sobs grew louder, and for the first time, I felt a pang of pity for her. But it wasn't enough to erase what she'd done. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to think clearly. So, let me get this straight, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos. You've been lying to me for years. You've been cheating on me with your ex. And now, you're telling me the baby might not even belong to either of us? Jenna nodded weakly, unable to meet my gaze. Do you even know who the other person might be? I asked, my tone sharp. Jenna shook her head. It was a mistake, she whispered. A one-time thing. I didn't think it mattered. It mattered, I snapped. It mattered the moment you decided to keep it from me. Claire stepped between us, her voice calm but firm. Ethan, I know this is a lot, but you need to think about what comes next. This baby might not be yours, but there's still a chance it is. You should get a paternity test before you make any final decisions. I nodded, the rational part of my brain kicking in. You're right, I said. But even if the baby is mine, this marriage is over. I can't live like this anymore. Jenna let out a wail, collapsing onto the couch. Please, Ethan, she begged. Don't do this. We can fix it. We can start over. No, Jenna, I said firmly. You made that impossible the moment you chose to betray me. The next few days were a blur. I arranged for a paternity test and started the process of filing for divorce. Claire stayed by my side, helping me navigate the chaos Jenna had created. When the test results finally came in, I sat in my car for what felt like an eternity before opening the envelope. My hands trembled as I read the results. The baby wasn't mine. The revelation brought a strange sense of relief. It confirmed what I already knew deep down. My life with Jenna was built on lies. I called Claire to let her know, and she offered to be there when I confronted Jenna one last time. When I walked into the house, Jenna was sitting on the couch, her eyes red and puffy. She looked up as I entered, hope flickering in her gaze. "Well?" she asked hesitantly. "It's not mine," I said simply, holding up the envelope. Jenna broke down again, but this time, I didn't feel pity. I felt free. As I packed my things, Jenna made one last desperate plea. "Ethan, please. I'll do anything to make this right. Just don't leave me." I paused at the door, looking back at her. "You had your chance, Jenna," I said, "and you threw it away." With that, I walked out, closing the door on that chapter of my life. Months later, I received an update from Claire. Jenna had tried to track down Daniel, but he had indeed left the country, leaving her to face the consequences alone. As for me, I had started to rebuild my life. It wasn't easy, but for the first time in years, I felt at peace. And while the betrayal still stung, it also taught me an important lesson. Sometimes, the truth hurts, but it's the only way to find freedom.